Should triathletes shave their legs? In this video, I'm going to tell you about my experiment with that. So first of all, we should talk about why it might be a good idea. And one of the reasons is that Specialized put a cyclist in a wind tunnel and measured the drag based on their standard hairy legs and their shaved legs. And what they found is that you got the equivalent of 15 watts saving, which is like 60 to 90 seconds over 40k, so over a 90k middle distance, probably looking at maybe 2 to 3 minutes, which is significant, I would say. Depends on what your thinking terms. I always think these things are small, but actually when we're talking about spending £200 on an aero helmet to save us 90 seconds, actually getting 3 minutes from just shaving my legs is a big gain that's really worth having. So I decided to test it in a very non-scientific way. In a good scientific study, we would repeat it, we would control the conditions to measure it very quickly, very carefully. I didn't do that. What I did was I shaved my legs. I'll try and get them into the camera. This was a week ago, so I'm starting to get a bit of stubble growing back there, but they're still way smoother than when I had my hairy legs. So I did that for Outlaw X, which is a middle distance triathlon. It's pretty flat, it's just one run. I haven't done multiple of those, but I did time it because I was trying to get my whole time down under 6 hours. And so I really wanted to get my bike split to around 3 hours in order to make that possible. So how did it go? Well, just in terms of a placebo effect, it felt fast. So on the flat, I was doing anywhere from 30, 35, 40 kilometers an hour. And I feel like I would normally struggle to do that, even on the flat, down on my aero bars. So it felt like I was making great progress for like the first 70 kilometers. Then it started to get hilly, which threw me out of my aero position. And so I wasn't getting quite the same benefit up and down the hills, but until then I was averaging not way over, but noticeably over 30 kilometers an hour, even with the few hills that were in there. So let's go look at the results and compare it to other races, and this is where it is pretty inconclusive because I don't have that perfect race to compare it against. I've taken the results of several races and put them into this comparison table here, and I've ended up arranging them by elevation gain, so how steep the hills were as an average gradient. So if you're climbing 1 kilometer of vertical gain every 100 kilometers of riding, that would be 1%. None of these courses were quite that hilly. But that seems to be the best predictor. If we look at the average speed, it almost perfectly lines up with the elevation gain. The only one that is slightly out of order is the Evolve Sprint. And as you can see from the power numbers, I just put down a lot more power because it was a sprint race. So Outlaw X, which is the race I shaved my legs for, that's right in the middle in terms of elevation gain. And it's fairly low down on the speed. It's faster than World Triathlon Leads, but not steep as that. And then Evolve Sprint, there's just a big power difference. So if we add the supposed 15 watts there, that takes us to 197, which is the same as the Evolve Quarter, which I was slower than, but it is hillier. And if we compare that with the Evolve Sprint, 197, still lower than 208, but it's only 11 watts slower, and I was 0.8 kilometers per hour slower on a slightly hillier course. So there isn't really the fact that I've shaved my legs or not, as the previous races, doesn't really seem to tell us anything here, because it seems to be all about the elevation gain rather than how aero my legs were. So there you go. The lab test, the wind tunnel test by Specialized, were very clear that we should shave our legs. My single run real world test wasn't particularly conclusive. I don't have that exact same elevation gain, distance, power output to say look, here's a race where I did the exact same thing and it shows it works, but it did feel pretty fast. But when you look at the times, there's no clear indication where we can say, well, this definitely was faster in the real world for me. I will keep you updated if I find that result, and then we'll be able to compare more directly. But for now, it seems to work in the wind tunnel. It may or may not work in the real world. That said, there are some other benefits to shaving your legs. So one is that it's easier to rub in things like sun cream. If you're going to be racing somewhere sunny, then you want to make sure you get plenty of sun cream on. It's just easier to rub in if you don't have hair all over your legs. And if the worst does happen and you crash, then picking bits of gravel out of your leg can be a lot easier if you have shaved legs as well. Now, not really a nice thing to think about, but a potential benefit if the worst does happen. So, should you shave your legs? Well, if you can be bothered to, then there probably is some benefit, but whether you're going to be able to measure that benefit, inconclusive at this point, but the wind tunnel tests do say it works. Hopefully that was interesting. If so, please give this video a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you want more videos about cycling and triathlon, because that's what my channel is all about, and I would love to see you in another video.